In the sprawling metropolis of Galixis Prime, located on the fringe of the Andromeda Galaxy, Jason Carter adjusted the hover controls of his cab, easing the vehicle through the congested air traffic. The city, bathed in the glow of neon signs and holographic advertisements, buzzed with the energy of a billion souls and machines intertwined in the dance of night commerce. Jason, an ex-military pilot now turned cab driver, had seen better days. His muscular frame, a reminder of his days in the space infantry, was now mostly confined to the driver's seat of his hovercab. His sharp eyes, however, missed nothing, from the flicker of a rogue drone to the unusual silence of an alleyway. As the night drew on, Jason was ready to wrap up his shift when a priority fare request pinged on his dashboard, rerouting him to a location rarely frequented by regular customers, a dark, narrow alley in one of the less savory parts of the city. The coordinates led him to the back of a rundown bar known for its rough clientele and rougher exits. Upon his arrival, the alley was shrouded in darkness, save for the occasional flicker of a broken street lamp. He waited, the hum of the cab's engines a gentle purr in the stillness. Then, a figure emerged from the shadows, a tall, imposing alien whose skin shifted in color with each step, blending from deep blues to stark grays. The alien moved with a purposeful stride, his heavy boots clanking softly on the wet cobblestone. "Driver." The alien's voice was a deep rasp as he opened the passenger door and slid into the back seat. His silver eyes, gleaming with an inner light, met Jason's in the rearview mirror. Sector 47, the abandoned shipyard. Quickly, Jason entered the coordinates and glanced at the rearview mirror. "That's a dangerous area this time of night," he remarked, a hint of concern lacing his tone. The alien unclasped a small, metallic badge from his cloak, tossing it onto the front passenger seat. The badge was old, military. Jason recognized the insignia of the Veyron fleet, known for their fierce warriors and advanced technology. "Get me there safely, and my ship, a Veyron Interceptor, is yours." The offer was ludicrous. A ship for a cab ride, yet the earnestness in the alien's eyes told Jason this was no ordinary fare. He nodded, settling into his seat as he prepared for the drive. "Strap in," he said, not just a suggestion but a warning. As the cab lifted off, soaring higher into the city's layers of traffic, Jason felt the old thrill of flying in combat zones, his senses sharpening. It wasn't long before the first signs of trouble appeared. A squadron of black market drones, sleek and aggressive, slipped out from between the buildings and into their path. "Looks like we've got company," Jason muttered, switching the cab to manual drive. His hands moved with practiced ease, guiding the cab into a sharp dive as the drones opened fire. Hale, still calm, watched the drones with interest. "Pirates," he said, identifying the markings on the drones with a quick glance. "They're after me, or rather, what I'm carrying." With a grim nod, Jason focused on the chase, weaving through the city's dense architecture. The cab's engines roared louder, pushed to their limits as he executed evasive maneuvers he hadn't used since his military days. Cale, meanwhile, accessed a concealed panel in his armrest, his fingers dancing over the controls. Weapons, Jason realized. The cab was suddenly more than just a vehicle. It was a temporary fortress, hurtling through the night with two warriors at the helm, one fighting to escape his past, the other to reclaim his future. Together, they plunged deeper into the night, the cityscape a blur of lights as they raced towards the shipyard, their unlikely alliance forged in the fires of necessity and the promise of a ship as a reward. The night air was filled with the whine of engines and the crack of laser fire as Jason maneuvered the cab through the dizzying heights of Galixis Prime. Below, the city was a tapestry of light and shadow, its beauty marred by the deadly dance unfolding in the skies. Jason's hands were steady on the controls, his focus unwavering as he dodged and weaved through the incoming fire from the pirate drones. Beside him, Cale monitored the enemy's movements on a small display, his fingers moving rapidly to adjust their defensive systems. "Hard left now," he shouted, just as a barrage of laser fire zipped past where the cab had been a moment earlier. Jason complied, the cab banking sharply and throwing them both against their restraints. They're not giving up, are they? Jason grunted, feeling the adrenaline pumping through his veins, a sensation he hadn't felt since his days in combat. Not likely, Kale replied, his voice calm despite the chaos around them. These drones are top-grade black market tech. Whoever sent them isn't interested in taking prisoners. The pursuit led them through the commercial districts where towering holograms of intergalactic celebrities advertised everything from exotic vacations to the latest in tech gear. Bright lights and constant movement provided some cover, but not enough to shake their pursuers. Jason pushed the cab to its limits, the old military-grade enhancements he'd installed humming with energy. "Hang on," he called out as he executed a risky maneuver, diving the cab into an under-construction tunnel. Its incomplete status marked by blinking warning lights and floating safety bots. The drones followed, their programming too advanced to be fooled by the sudden disappearance. Inside the tunnel, the sounds of the city faded, replaced by the echoing roar of their engines and the intermittent blast of the drones' lasers. Sparks flew from the tunnel walls where shots connected, the light reflecting in the metallic surfaces, casting eerie shadows. Kale's hands flew over his makeshift control panel, deploying countermeasures. Small, explosive drones of their own zipped backwards, homing in on their pursuers. There were small bursts of light behind them as several enemy drones were taken out, their wreckage clattering against the tunnel walls and onto the unfinished road below. But there was more to Kale than met the eye. He revealed yet another trick up his sleeve, an electronic warfare suite. With a deft touch, he began to jam the enemy drones' communication frequencies. Trying to scramble their systems, he explained, his concentration intense. If we can confuse them for just a moment. His efforts paid off. The remaining drones slowed, their movements erratic as they struggled under the barrage of conflicting commands. Seizing the opportunity, Jason accelerated out of the tunnel, the sudden brightness of the city at night blinding after the dim confines of their temporary refuge. Once they emerged, the sky above opened up, offering more routes to take. Jason didn't hesitate, taking sharp turns at breakneck speeds, the G-forces pressing them into their seats. They could see more drones crashing into each other or malfunctioning due to Kale's jamming signals. Finally, the last of the drones spiraled out of control and crashed into a neon billboard, exploding in a shower of sparks and flame. Jason didn't look back. He set the coordinates for the old shipyard in Sector 47, pushing the cab faster now that they were momentarily safe. Kale relaxed slightly, his body finally easing from its tense posture. "Nice flying," he complimented Jason, a rare smile breaking through his stoic exterior. "Thanks," Jason replied, allowing himself a brief smile. "But it's not over yet. We still need to get to that shipyard." As the adrenaline began to ebb, the gravity of their situation settled back over them. Jason knew they had won the battle, but the war was far from over. Kale's enemies were relentless, and they would surely regroup and come after them again. He glanced at Kale, who was checking his weapon systems, already preparing for the next confrontation. With the shipyard just a few kilometers away, the stakes were higher than ever. They were heading into what could very well be a trap, but there was no turning back now. The promise of a Veyron interceptor, and the freedom it represented, was too great to ignore. Jason gripped the steering controls tighter, his resolve steeling as the dark silhouette of the abandoned shipyard came into view. The shipyard loomed ahead, a sprawling complex of dilapidated hangars and rusted machinery, silent sentinels of a bygone era of bustling industry. The darkness was almost complete here, away from the city's vibrant lights. As they approached, Jason reduced the cab's speed, the quiet hum of the engines a stark contrast to the frantic chase they had just endured. Kale, looking out the window, seemed to be calculating their next move. "This place has been abandoned for years," he explained, his voice low. "It was once used for constructing the largest cargo ships that plied the galactic trade routes. Now, It serves a different purpose. Jason parked the cab behind a large, overturned cargo container, providing them with some cover. And that purpose would be? He asked, turning to Cale, who was now assembling what looked like a high-tech rifle. To hide this, Cale replied, gesturing to a compact device he pulled from his bag. It was sleek and clearly alien in design. This is a cloaking device capable of hiding ships from radar and scans. The prototype ship I mentioned is equipped with this technology. The significance of such technology wasn't lost on Jason. It could change the dynamics of power in the galaxy, especially for a rebel group fighting against a larger force. So, this is why they're after you? He asked, his expression serious. Exactly, Cale nodded. With this ship, we can hit the Federation where it hurts. We can transport troops, supplies, or strike quickly without being detected. It's a game changer. Their conversation was cut short by the sound of drones buzzing in the distance. Looks like we're not alone, Jason muttered, peering cautiously over the container. Several drones were patrolling the area, likely the first line of defense against intruders. Cale handed Jason a small, metallic object. Use this if you get into trouble, he said. It's a single-use EMP grenade. It won't last long, but it should give you enough time to make a move. Armed and ready, they moved stealthily among the shadows of the towering shipyard structures. Their goal was a decommissioned hangar at the far end of the complex, according to Cale's intel. As they navigated through the maze of scrap and derelict machinery, Jason felt the tension rise. Each step could be their last if they were spotted. Halfway to the hangar, a sudden burst of light and sound shattered the silence. A drone had detected their movement and opened fire. Jason reacted instinctively, pulling Cale back as blasts hit the ground where they had been seconds before. Rolling behind a large steel drum, Jason tossed the EMP grenade towards the drone. With a sharp crack and a burst of electric blue light, the drone fell from the sky, disabled. Nice throw, Cale commented, peeking around their cover. They continued their trek, more cautious now. As they neared the hangar, Cale's pace quickened. We're close, he whispered. Reaching the hangar, they found the entrance sealed by a large metal door. Cale approached, placing his hand on a concealed biometric scanner. The door groaned as it slid open, revealing the dark interior. Inside, the hangar was massive, the high ceiling lost in darkness. The air was stale, heavy with the smell of oil and metal. As their eyes adjusted, the shape of a ship began to emerge from the shadows, an impressive sight, sleek and predatory, its design unlike anything Jason had seen before. This is it, Cale breathed out, his eyes fixed on the ship. The Veyron Interceptor. As they approached the ship, Jason felt a mix of awe and apprehension. The Interceptor was clearly built for speed and stealth, its angular lines designed to minimize detection. Cale ran his hand along the hull, his expression mixed with pride and sadness. Before Jason could ask, Cale turned to him, his face grim. Getting the ship out won't be easy, he said. And there's something else you should know. Jason waited, sensing the weight of Cale's next words. I didn't escape alone. My sister, she's part of the crew waiting for us. She's inside that ship in cryo-sleep. We're not just stealing technology. Cale's voice was thick with emotion. We're saving lives. The mission had just taken on a new dimension for Jason. It wasn't just about fighting the Federation or gaining a ship. It was about family, freedom, and the lives hanging in the balance. With a new resolve, he nodded to Cale, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, they would fight to bring the ship and its precious cargo back to the stars. The interior of the hangar was a cavern of shadows, the dim lighting barely outlining the sleek form of the Veyron Interceptor. As Jason and Cale moved cautiously towards the ship, their footsteps echoed softly in the vast, empty space. The air was cool and smelled of grease and old metal, a testament to the many vessels that had once been built and maintained here. Suddenly, the quiet was shattered by the clanking sound of heavy boots on metal, a clear indication They were no longer alone. Jason instinctively reached for his weapon, a low-grade blaster he'd kept from his military days, while Kale readied his high-tech rifle. The tension in the air was palpable. From the shadows emerged a squad of Federation drones, their red targeting lasers sweeping the area. Behind them, cloaked in tactical gear, were human mercenaries. It was clear that this was not just a random patrol. They had been lying in wait, probably tipped off about Kale's intentions. "Looks like we walked right into a trap," Jason muttered under his breath, taking cover behind a stack of metal crates. Kale nodded, his expression turning grim. "They knew we were coming. We need to think fast." His eyes scanned the hangar, quickly assessing their options. The first exchange of gunfire was abrupt and fierce. Laser blasts illuminated the hangar in staccato flashes of light as Jason and Kale returned fire. Kale's rifle emitted a series of high-energy pulses, taking down 2 drones in quick succession. Jason, not to be outdone, managed to disable a mercenary with a well-aimed shot to the leg. But the enemy was well-prepared and outnumbered them. It was only a matter of time before their cover would be compromised. "We need a distraction," Jason said, eyeing the hangar's high ceiling crisscrossed with gantries and suspended machinery. Kale agreed. "I have an idea." He set his rifle to emit a continuous beam, slicing through a heavy chain that held a large engine block suspended from the ceiling. The chain snapped, sending the massive block crashing down, creating a deafening noise and a cloud of debris that enveloped the area. Using the confusion to their advantage, Jason and Kale moved swiftly, circling to the back of the hangar where the interceptor was parked. The ship was their best chance, not only as an escape vehicle, but as a powerful weapon. Kale hurried to the cockpit to initiate the startup sequence, while Jason covered him, firing at shadows that moved through the thick dust. As the interceptor's engines hummed to life, its weapon systems came online. Kale, now at the controls, swung the ship's turrets towards the remaining Federation forces. The ship fired, its blast more precise and devastating than any handheld weapon. With the enemy momentarily pushed back, Kale opened the ship's side hatch. "Get in, Jason. We're lifting off." Jason leaped aboard just as the interceptor began to rise, its powerful engines lighting up the hangar like daylight. They weren't out of danger yet. The Federation would not give up their quarry so easily. But as the hangar roof opened to the starry sky above, a path to freedom lay before them. However, as they ascended, Jason noticed multiple signals on the radar. Reinforcements were incoming, likely a mix of aerial drones and faster, more aggressive interceptors. "We've got company," he warned, pointing to the display. Kale's jaw tightened as he maneuvered the ship into combat readiness. "Let's see what the ship can really do," he said, a fierce determination in his voice. As they broke through the atmosphere, the black expanse of space welcomed them, but so did their pursuers. The chase was far from over, but now, aboard the interceptor, Jason and Kale had a fighting chance. Their escape from the hangar was just the beginning of a larger battle. For freedom, for survival, and for the very soul of the galaxy. With the Veyron interceptor slicing through the cosmos, Jason and Kale found themselves not only fugitives, but active combatants in a sprawling galactic chase. The interceptor, though agile and fortified with the latest stealth technology, was not yet free from the clutches of the Federation's relentless pursuit. Kale's hands danced across the controls, piloting the ship with a proficiency born of years navigating Veyron's elite squadrons. Jason manned the weapons console, his eyes fixed on the sensor array displaying a swarm of Federation drones, converging on their position. "They're faster than I expected," he noted, tension lining his voice as he prepared to engage. The space around them was a void speckled with the distant twinkle of stars, but the beauty of it was lost in the moment. Instead, the emptiness served as a battlefield. Kale initiated evasive maneuvers, the ship banking sharply to avoid a volley of laser fire from an approaching drone squadron. "Hang on!" Kale shouted, just as the interceptor dipped into the gravitational pull of a nearby asteroid field. The rocky terrain provided some cover, but also a new set of challenges. Massive asteroids loomed ahead, each one a potential deadly obstacle. Jason fired at the approaching drones, the ship's advanced weapons system sending out precise, deadly blasts. Several drones exploded into fragments, their wreckage clattering against the rocky surfaces of the asteroids. As they navigated through the asteroid field, the interceptor's alarms blared, a signal that enemy ships had locked onto them with advanced tracking missiles. "We need to shake them off," Jason called out. His focus split between the incoming missiles and the treacherous asteroid field. Cale's eyes narrowed as he spotted a particularly dense cluster of asteroids. With a swift decision, he steered the interceptor towards it. "When I say now, hit the thrusters and prepare for some rough riding," he instructed with a calm that belied the risk of their maneuver. "Now," he yelled, and Jason slammed the thruster control forward. The interceptor surged ahead, its speed increasing exponentially. The sudden burst allowed them to slip through narrow gaps in the asteroids, barely scraping through. The pursuing missiles, unable to match the interceptor's agility, collided with the asteroids, erupting in a series of fiery explosions. With the immediate threat behind them, Cale didn't slow down. He pushed the ship even harder, the engines whining under the strain as they made their way out of the asteroid field. Emerging into open space, Jason checked the sensors. More Federation ships were on an intercept course, their advanced propulsion systems quickly closing the distance. "It's not just drones this time," Jason said, his voice grim. "Looks like they've sent after the Wraith." Cale's expression turned serious. The Wraith was a notorious Federation enforcer, known for his ruthlessness and an uncanny ability to track and destroy his targets. "If the Wraith is here, then they're really out for blood," he acknowledged, adjusting the interceptor's course. "We need a plan." Jason thought for a moment, his strategic mind working through their options. The nebula of Tarkus is not far from here. Its ion storms could disrupt their sensors. We might lose them there. Cale nodded in agreement. "It's risky, but it's our best shot." They set a course for the nebula of Tarkus, the ship's engines glowing hot as they sped towards their only chance of escape. The nebula loomed ahead, a swirling mass of ionized gas and electromagnetic storms. As they entered the nebula, the ship bucked and shook violently, the electromagnetic disturbances playing havoc with the interceptor systems. Cale struggled to maintain control, while Jason monitored the pursuing ships. One by one, the Federation ships fell back, unable to navigate the volatile environment of the nebula. Breathing a sigh of relief, Jason looked over at Cale, who managed a tight smile. "Looks like we've got a reprieve," Jason said, his relief palpable. "For now," Cale added, his eyes on the space ahead. "But the Wraith won't give up so easily. We need to be ready." In the eerie glow of the nebula of Tarkus, the interceptor sailed onward, its crew bracing for the next phase of their flight to freedom. They had escaped the immediate danger, but the road ahead was fraught with uncertainty. Jason and Cale knew that their battle was far from over. It had merely entered a new, more dangerous phase. As the nebula's glow faded behind them, Jason and Cale emerged from the chaotic storms of the nebula of Tarkus, the onboard systems of the interceptor slowly stabilizing after the tumultuous escape. The vast expanse of space before them felt momentarily peaceful, a stark contrast to the battles they had just endured. But the respite was short-lived. The sensor arrays soon beeped insistently, a grim reminder that the Wraith's pursuit was relentless. "The Wraith is still on our trail," Jason announced, checking the readouts. "He's adapted to the nebula conditions. Looks like we can't shake him that easily." Cale nodded, his features set in determination. "Then we fight," he said simply. "This ship has capabilities we haven't yet fully tested. Let's see what she can do." The interceptor sped through the cosmos, its engines humming with renewed vigor. Cale piloted the ship towards a nearby planetary system, using the gravitational fields of the planets to their advantage. The Wraith, known for his solitary pursuits, followed, his ship sleek and menacing against the backdrop of stars. As they approached a particularly volatile gas giant, Kale executed a daring maneuver. "Hold on," he warned, as he directed the interceptor into a sharp dive towards the planet's upper atmosphere. The ship skimmed the dense gas clouds, harnessing the planet's turbulent atmospheric currents to boost their speed. Jason manned the weapon's console, his fingers ready at the controls. As the Wraith ship appeared in their sights, Jason unleashed a volley of plasma fire. The Wraith dodged expertly, returning fire with precision. The battle was intense, with both ships weaving through the dangerous atmospheric anomalies of the gas giant. Kale's strategy soon became clear. He was not just evading. He was leading the Wraith into a trap. As they circled the planet, Kale piloted the interceptor towards a narrow canyon visible on the surface below, a canyon filled with volatile gas pockets. "It's now or never," Kale said, his voice steady. "Prepare for the final run." Jason nodded, understanding the plan. As they flew into the canyon, the walls narrowed and the risks increased. The Wraith, relentless as ever, followed them into the treacherous terrain. Kale flew with unmatched skill, dodging outcroppings and gas explosions triggered by their passing. At the critical moment, Kale flipped the interceptor, bringing them face to face with the Wraith's ship in a narrow pass. Jason fired directly at the Wraith's engines, the shot enhanced by the volatile gases surrounding them. The resulting explosion was monumental, the shockwave sending them hurtling out of the canyon, barely in control but alive. The Wraith's ship, critically damaged, lost its pursuit, drifting aimlessly in the atmospheric currents of the gas giant. With the Wraith defeated, Jason and Kale didn't pause to celebrate. They set a course for the Veyron rebel base, hidden in the uncharted depths of the Scylla Nebula. The base was a haven not just for rebels, but for those oppressed by the Federation's tyranny. Upon their arrival, the base erupted in cheers. The rebels had been monitoring the chase, and the destruction of the Wraith's ship was a significant blow to the Federation. Kale's sister, awakened from cryo-sleep, joined them, her reunion with Kale a poignant moment amid the celebrations. Jason, looking around at the gathered crowd, felt a sense of belonging he hadn't felt since his military days. Kale approached him, gratitude and respect evident in his gaze. "You didn't just help me steal a ship, you helped save lives," Kale said, clapping Jason on the shoulder. "Stay with us. Help us fight." Jason considered the offer. He had started the night as a simple cab driver, but fate had steered him to this moment, this cause. Looking at the faces of those he had helped save, Jason knew his journey was just beginning. "I'm in," he said with a firm nod. "Let's bring this fight to the Federation." And so, amidst the stars of the Scylla Nebula, a new alliance was forged. Jason, once a lone human in a vast galaxy, found his place among the rebels, committed to fighting for justice and freedom against a formidable enemy. Together, they planned their next moves, not just to survive, but to thrive and to ensure that the tyranny of the Federation would one day end, bringing peace and equality to the galaxy.